Now, last year I spent a lot of time visiting paradise or Islamic gardens all over the world. But there was one much closer to home that I wanted to see, but which wasn't ready. In fact, it was more than one. It was a whole series of gardens, which are now completed, and Arit has been along to see them in all their glory.
London is a cauldron of design, art and culture, with exciting new buildings and rooftop gardens all the more apparent. But its latest edition of architectural garden spaces encapsulates and blends historic qualities and modern-day notions in this vibrant metropolis. The Aga Khan Centre in King's Cross contains 6 Islamic gardens which take inspiration from across the ancient Islamic world, stretching from southern Europe all the way into the Asian subcontinent. The centre has created these idyllic spaces with the help of award-winning designers, so students, office workers and members of the public can take in their contemporary serenity. Historian Dr. Mehreen Chida Razvi specialises in South Asian and Mughal art at SOAS, University of London, and has joined me to discuss the historical and cultural significance of these gardens. What are the typical traits of an Islamic garden?
If I have to break it down to a very general description, I would say that these are typically walled-in spaces. They're going to have an element of running water in them that will divide the space up into sections. You'll have some lovely green and floral planting. They're very aesthetic, but they're very sensory as well.
Is there symbolism in water in an Islamic garden?
In the Quran, paradise is a garden. And the description that we're given of paradise is that it is a garden and there are 4 flowing rivers in it. And one is of water, one of wine, of honey, and milk. And so the idea of having running water in these spaces, we can sometimes make a paradisical connotation with that.
What type of planting is typically found in an Islamic garden?
You're going to have typically a variety. You're going to have flowering plants, but then you're also going to have evergreen trees. The idea is that throughout the year, you're going to have a continued presence of greenery and nature in these spaces.
So this one's the Garden of Life, but it's a Mughal garden.
So the Mughals were an Islamic dynasty who ruled over South Asia from 1526 to 1858. And they were existing at a time as part of a wider Persian cultural sphere. And when we look at this particular space, to me it just screams that this is based on Mughal gardens. The chador, which is the name for this particular type of waterfall in the fountain, you can see that it's made of marble. It's got this elaborate fish scale pattern behind. And so when the water is falling down, the sound is being enhanced by it falling down those fish scales. This feature, the chador, you don't find in other Islamic gardens, so it's very much a Mughal feature. Then you have the fact that this is a symmetrical space, and symmetry was an incredibly important aspect of Mughal architecture in general.
I'm looking at the planting. I really like the way these beds look.
The yews, they're shaped like the cypress tree, which is indigenous to the region and which we would have found in many of the Mughal gardens in South Asia at the time. And we know that from contemporary paintings and written references. But more than that, the fact that these beds are full of a combination of different plantings, which is not very structured, but which is still very aesthetically pleasing, was what originally Mughal gardens would have looked like. Today, when we go to South Asia and we see them, the aesthetic is completely different, because in the British period, they basically turned them into these formal gardens that were very much appreciated in Europe at the time. So I think it's really wonderful that in this particular space, it's organized, but it's a bit haphazard as well, which would have been very much in a proper Mughal mode.
The gardens in this complex each have their own identity, and it's clear to see why His Highness, the Aga Khan, has commissioned them. They showcase the remarkable design that Islam brought to the world. This is the Garden of Light. You cannot help but be impressed by these 4-metre-high screens that have taken their cut work from Jali and Mashrabiyah work that you would see across India and the Middle East. And what I love are these hand-carved inscriptions that have been taken from the Quran or from well-known poets. They're absolutely beautiful. The central focal piece is this water feature, an 8-pointed star. It's just giving enough sound to distract you from the outside. The symmetry is so evident in this garden, whether it's the walls, looking at the rills of the floor, and certainly being flanked by these beautiful magnolia trees. But the secret that really works in this garden is how it's drawn in the expanse of sky. Now that is very clever. The Garden of Tranquility epitomises the symmetry and geometry that we've spoken about in an Islamic garden. Looking up, I can see that geometry very, very clearly. These 4 marble benches are pivotal in this space. They're going to be needed to help with the socialising aspect that this space has been created for. When the wider development at King's Cross is finished, this garden is going to be able to have the benefit of looking out over a sunny garden whilst remaining in the shade. So that's going to be something so special for all the visitors and office workers to enjoy. To be in a garden is always so visually stimulating, but it's the experience that we all really love. And I feel very privileged to be here at the golden hour in these gardens, something that I won't forget.
The Aga Khan Centre gardens will be open to the public from the 22nd of September.